Tell me a little bit about Pan American, because you've given what, $450 million back in dividends over its time. It's throwing off cash. It's a huge silver producer. Is it just more of the same? Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's more of the same. It's a much bigger company now than it was a few years ago because we combined with Tahoe Resources beginning of last year. So not only does Pan American produce, it's the second largest primary silver mining company in the world, but it also produces a lot of gold. It'll produce almost 600,000 ounces this year. So it's a very leveraged company to gold as well as silver. And it's got, an impeccable balance sheet, great cash flow, multiple assets in multiple countries. So just a really good diversified major company in the silver business as well as the gold business. That's I hope going to last a long time. Those companies are hard to build, but once you build them, they're actually they kind of run on themselves. The thing about all these companies, though, don't forget all these operating companies. The mining business, the reason there's a market for these junior companies, the exploration companies that have good assets that are setting themselves up to be sold, the reason there's always a market for those companies is because major companies eat their future every single day, right? Their reserves deplete. And unless they replace the reserves through their own discoveries or by buying other companies, they go out of business. The whole business plan dies unless they sustain their production by acquiring other companies that have good discoveries that will allow them to sustain their production for many years, or they discover it themselves. And major companies aren't very good at discovering mines themselves, so therefore they generally go out and buy them from juniors. And that's where there's always this great market for the junior companies that are successful. They're going to be bought. And so Pan American Silver probably will, like Equinox Gold, they got to a certain point where they're not making their own discoveries quickly enough to support their depletion of reserves from mining, and they have to go out and look for other companies. And that's probably going to be what these companies are going to do for a long time.
It's a very tough, very competitive environment, which doesn't make things any cheaper. But if you can find a niche, if you can find your position in this, I guess you're saying you can do it with the right drive, ambition.
You can do it. And yet companies do make mistakes. They buy companies that are dogs, or they go and build a mine that turns out to be a dog. I mean, this is a very risky business, and even the people in the business like me, we often make terrible mistakes. We buy the wrong thing, or Pan American bought a company in Argentina that had the biggest silver resource, in the world. It was a fabulous deposit in the middle of a perfectly good place to mine, in the middle of a kind of a windswept no man's land in the middle of Argentina, Pampas in southern Argentina. And, it had every technical reason in the world to be a really great place to build a mine. There was no biodiversity loss, no environmental issues, no people, no nothing. And yet, weirdly and very terrible luck, the province was a place where another company had made a discovery of a really rich gold deposit in a ski resort. And the people in the ski resort went bananas, and they banned mining, and they threw out the baby with the bathwater, and they banned mining in the entire province. So they banned mining there and in our area. Well, I couldn't figure any reason that would persist because it was so illogical to me. It made absolutely no technical or environmental sense. So I thought, well, let's go and buy this company that's got this great deposit there. The deposit's perfect for us. And at some point they're going to change the law and allow open pit mining. Well, it's now been 10 or 11 years that we've owned that deposit. And I still have that kind of blind optimism that they're going to change the law. But so far they haven't, and maybe they never will. So if they never do, that will have been a really, really dumb thing to buy. But you've got to take risks, and you've got to swing that bat and try to, if it is permitted, it's going to be a home run. If it's not, it's going to be a strikeout. So that's your risk and reward ratio when you make all these decisions on these companies. And so I can say that from personal experience.
I mean, that nearly happened with Tahoe, didn't it? There was nearly a sort of sticky moment there. I mean, it was idle for well over a year. I mean, that must have been tough going.
Well, it still is. It still is idle. I mean, we bought Tahoe in 2017, right at the bottom of the gold, there was a lull in the gold price. The Tahoe price had been crushed because its main asset was put out of operation by the constitutional court in Guatemala. And we came along and said, okay, well, the value of the purchase is based on their other assets. And that's been, for us, it's been almost a home run. I mean, the timing was just beautiful, and the assets are good. And we get the silver asset in Guatemala for free. And if we have it restored to operation, then we're going to make a payment to the Tahoe shareholders. But if we don't pay for it. And so it was a very well structured deal. But to be honest, to this day, it's not running yet. We need to get social license in Guatemala. We're working very hard to get it. And we may get it and we may not get it. It's just the way it is. We're pretty sure we will, because again, it's a resource that is very high grade, very, very low cost mining. The mine's built, everything's there. It's a tiny footprint. It doesn't cause any real issues with anybody. It generates a massive amount of wealth for the Guatemalan economy. There's no real logical reason in the world that mine shouldn't be running again, creating wealth for the Guatemalan people and for Pan American. But so far, it's not running. That's all I can say.